Prongs, what's going on, buddy? What's the worst anthem you've ever heard in your life?
Oh, there's been a lot. When they forget the words to the song, that's not good.
Prongs, were you playing when that girl, the worst of all time, it's not even close. It was a Team Canada game, and forgive me, I can't remember what tournament, but it was Team Canada on the big stage. She came out, forgot the words, left, got convinced to come back, slipped on the carpet, landed on her ass, and just probably wanted to crawl into a hole for the rest of her life.
I don't think I was there for that one. That would have been.
There's
that's
nothing
all
worse
time.
than that.
That's all time right there.
Oh boy. Prongs, what was your thought of this Four Nations face-off when you first heard of it? And has your opinion changed at all now that you've seen a few games?
No, I liked it. I think the players have been clamoring for best on best for these types of tournaments. I think now that there's going to be some consistency to the event, Olympics, and then the next 2 years, and then World Cup, and then you're able to build on top of growing the game and providing some marketing for the top players in the game. And it just gives it a little bit more consistency and a look for fans and those that are interested in the sport and interested in seeing these elite athletes play at the highest level with the best players. There's nothing better. And as you're seeing with these games, these players are excited. It's been a long time coming for a lot of them to be able to play with some of their idols and play with some of their friends and in last night's game, their brother. So it's exciting. And I think for most of the fans that aren't complaining, they're loving it and love to see the passion that's coming out in these games.
We brought you on for a variety of reasons, among them your honest takes. And in Leafs Nation, we've been trying to develop this this narrative. I don't know if it's real or not, but Mitch Marner scores in 3-on-3 OT. Was that a turning point of Mitch Marner's career, in your opinion?
Unless he's going to be playing with Sidney Crosby, I don't see how. I think anything that can bolster your confidence and build you up in those high pressure impact moments, it can only help. He's coming back to Toronto though, and I think you would put it on the other side. Can William Nylander do the same thing? Can Austin Matthews do the same thing for their respective clubs? It'll be interesting, but I don't think it hurts them. But it's certainly, it's a different setup. Playing for your country, playing with the best players in the world against the best players of their respective countries. It's there's a lot on the line.
And obviously, those three players have yet to get over the hump in Toronto. When you played international hockey and got back to business as usual in the NHL, was it different? Did you feel better? Did you like it? Was it distracting? What was your thoughts on playing international hockey for Team Canada and then to go back to your respective team?
It's definitely an adjustment playing at that high a pace and that level with those players and then coming back to your respective NHL club. And not to sound rude, but it's just dumbed down. The team you're coming back to is not the best in the world. And so you come out of the gate playing at this high level when you come back from these events and you're looking at the game in a way that those high-end elite players are looking at the game. And frankly, the players you're playing with aren't those players. So there is an adjustment.
Does that make you feel? Does that make you feel like you're more king of the mountain? Like you remind yourself, like I am one of the best. These guys, and does it make you step up mentally, confidence level wise?
I think what it does is it forces you to be a better leader in the sense that you have to come back and level up those around you, make them be better, help them be better, and force them into understanding where you need them to be. So you're coaching a little bit more, you're teaching a little bit more. And by the way, a lot of these guys are being taught from the best in the world too. It's not like you're going into this best on best tournament knowing everything. You're picking up little nuances, little things in your game that you can add from somebody else's game. So there's a lot of things that you're paying attention to, whether it be on the bench or in the game or in practice, that you can add to your game when you come home. And hopefully able to provide some guidance to your teammates in order to level up and as you talk about Toronto, get over that hump. What do they need to do in certain moments, in certain situations, that is going to allow them to win those must win games, and those games that are career turning.
You were a little guppy back in the day, and I was going to ask you just that. Like when you rubbed elbows, like, you know, we look for every cliche in the book, but like, for example, Mitch Marner's got so many winners around him. You know, Matthews, ditto for him. Like we're just hoping for anything. Like, how much do you think that actually benefits in the long run?
It does. When you win on the highest stage, it helps. You know, it builds your confidence, and especially if you play a significant role and are able to produce and play a significant role in winning hockey games, you know, scoring the OT winner in this case. You know, I remember in 98, I was a young 23-year-old playing in the Olympics for the first time. Gretzky's there, Scott Stevens, Ray Bork, you know, all kinds of guys, all walks of life are there, you know, players that I watched growing up, and you're like, oh my God, you know, and you're now immersed in, you know, playing at the highest level with these guys, and you're paying it. You're not watching, you're paying attention and trying to pick out little things that are germane to how you play, that you can add to your repertoire, if you will, and watching how they lead, how they handle situations. And then you go to 0-2 and you play with Mario Lemieux and Steve Yzerman's on one leg, and the lore of that. And it really, you look back on how you lead. You know, I know, especially in 0-2, at that point, I was a young captain in 98, and I get to 0-2, and had the opportunity of learning how things evolve in 98 with the Olympics, and then 0-2, all the adversity that you face, you know, how they handled it, how they manage expectations and pressure, and you're able to really kind of internalize that as you gain experience, and really add that into your bag of tricks as a leader. And early in my career, I was very fiery and boisterous. And as my career evolved, I got a little quieter. I was still, you know, holding my teammates accountable, and you know, trying to challenge guys to play better and play at the highest level, and challenge myself, but not all the time. It can get old to teammates and players if you're constantly writing them about doing something and playing a certain way, and on and on and on. You know, we talk about all the time having a group of leaders. There's a time and a place for everybody to stand up and hold one another accountable, hold the team accountable, and pick guys up and kind of poke and prod when needed. It can't always be the coach. It can't always be the captain. And when you have a quiet captain, when they speak, everybody listens, because the other guys around the room have been able to impart their wisdom and impart their leadership on the group. So when that moment comes, when you need your captain, when you need someone to really step up and lead, the floor is theirs, and they're able to do it.
You know, now that this tournament's underway, Prongs, you've got a chance to see the two contenders play a game apiece. What are your thoughts on Canada and USA, and how do you think they stack up against each other?
I think from a pure talent standpoint, high level talent, Canada's forwards. From a physical standpoint, I would give US the check mark on that side of it. On the defensive end, I would give Canada and the US, I would say they're on par now with losing Theodore. I don't think people are giving Jake Sanderson enough credit and attention on the back end as an addition to the loss of Quinn Hughes. You know, he's a pretty slick skater and smart player. And then, you know, goalies, I think it's a push, really, when you look at the experience of Binnington winning. Yes, he may not be in that form, but he has the experience and the wherewithal of winning a Stanley Cup. And Hellebuck has not won anything. While he's won an Vezina, he hasn't won anything with respect to a team trophy. So I think you have to kind of call that a push. So if you're looking at it, you know, I think Canada has a slight edge, but it'll depend, I think, on the excitement and the energy and the passion that you know, the U.S. comes out with, trying to play aggressive and physical and play very Canadian-esque. Where you look at the Canadian team, they're very high skill, high talent. And that's not to say or take anything away from Matthews and Eichel and the guys that the US has.
As someone who's lived at Prongs, what's it like to put on that Canadian jersey and then play like the United States out of all countries?
It's funny. I was looking at people complaining about this alleged All-Star game we're about to watch, and I'm like, you people have no idea.
Yeah.
Once you throw that maple leaf over your chest and put on the jersey, the pride with which you play with, and you got to remember these guys are going back to a locker room filled with Americans and Swedes and Finns. They want to be able to walk in and hold their head high and say, sorry, boys, not today.
Yeah.
And be able, bragging rights. We're very competitive as athletes, and especially at these high-level athletes are incredibly proud, very competitive, very driven. They're not going to take a step back for anything or anyone. And, I think these games are proving that when you see what it means to each and every one of these countries and the teams.
Do you think that with Team Canada specifically, kind of the pressure's on more than with other outfits, and the fact that they've kind of been slipping their foothold with, the stranglehold on international hockey, specifically, most recently with the World Juniors and what they've done? Do you think this means a little bit more than people are realizing when it comes down to it?
Most definitely. And as we all know, Canada always has a target on its back. Now it's just, as countries catch up, how are we able to elevate ourselves, and how are we able to continue to find our identity? I think we have these high-level generational talents in McKinnon, McDavid's, Crosby, and Makar on the back end. And we talk about these names, and we look at the other side, and you're like, well, they've got Matthews and Eichel and the Tkachuk brothers now, and you have all of these players that have been looking at Canada and staring at them like, I want them. They want the challenge. They are accepting the challenge and want it. And I think as Canadians, we have to understand these other countries are catching up or have caught up to us. And it's up to us to identify that and then figure out how we can separate ourselves and get us over the hump each and every time, because they are talented. Everybody thought that game the other day against Sweden was going to be a joke. Like, Sweden's got good players. They got a good team.
Yeah.
They arguably have the best defense core in the tournament. And they have good goaltending. Up front, you might look at them and go, well, they're not uber talented. They've got really good players, but they're not uber talented. But they play well as a team.
Yeah.
And, in these tournaments, that's what matters. It's such a quick tournament. It's 4 games if you make it to the finals. So it goes quick, and you have to get off to a good start. They came out in the first period like they were shot out of a cannon, and then Sweden kind of handled that mad rush in the first period and came out 2-1. And you understand that as the game went along, the ice actually tilted in Sweden's favor a lot.
Yeah.
You could argue they should have won with the chances they had in overtime before the Marner goal.
Yeah.
So you really have to realize that, again, best on best. Like these, whether it's Canada, US, Sweden, Finland, like Finland was in the game up until the third period when they came out a little flat. 2-1 going into the third. Who would have thought that?
Yeah.
With that back end, they're pretty depleted on defense with their high end talent. So it's
it's been dynamite so far. Like, I've really, really enjoyed it. So has Rosie. I wanted to leave you with this. We are a Leafs show, as you know. You played for Craig Berube in Philadelphia. I know we spoke about a year and a half ago, and I think you're lukewarm on where the Leafs were headed. How do you feel about this team now under Craig Berube?
I think they have some issues still, the back end. They've got some battle-tested guys, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the top players. They have to go out. Typically, when you see teams win Stanley Cups, and we'll use Edmonton and Florida, the top 2 lines typically cross each other off. Best on best, they're going to cross each other off. It's the bottom 6 how does the third pairing of defense play? How's the goalie play? Those are where you're where you're tested. And you have to really understand, what do they have? How are they filling in that bottom six? How are they filling in their third pair on defense? I think the goalies, Stolars, Wool, I think they're okay. I think they can, he got a good look at what it was going to take last year in Florida. He's obviously not Bobrovsky, but he's got a very good understanding up and down the lineup, what it took for them to win. And he can impart some wisdom. But, Chief obviously knows the buttons to push. And it's not, as we always say, it's not, from October to April. It's April to June. And what they're doing and how they're building, how he's pressure testing some of his players and getting to understand what buttons to push, how to push them, when to push them. All those things lead into April when it matters the most. And we'll see. I mean, we can sit here and pick it apart 7 ways from Sunday, but until they're actually there, and, this tournament is a good test for a lot of those guys to figure out how they're going to show up when they are called upon in those moments to step up and score a big goal, block a shot with their face in order to win, whatever it's going to take. And I think they need to be in these moments more often to really get an understanding of what it does take.
Very well said, Prongs. You always bring the heat. I really appreciate your time today, man.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.